Onto your markets news now. Asian stocks closed mixed on the first day of November. This as market players decided to be cautious ahead of the US elections taking place on the 5th of November, that is next Tuesday. Meanwhile, geopolitical tensions were credited for having seen an uplift in oil prices over the last few sessions, while players will also be keenly watching data coming out of the largest economy in the world. The Nikkei share average ended the session down 0.26%. The Hang Seng Index rose by 0.93%. Intraday, the Shanghai Composite Index registered some gains but ended down 0.24% by the close of play. US stocks ended yesterday's session sharply lower, this as the Nasdaq led the losses following worse than expected earnings guidance from the likes of Microsoft and Meta. There are concerns around the high AI cost and their potential to dent tech company margins. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 0.9%. The S&P 500 closed 1.8% in the red, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq ended the session down a whopping 2.76%. The rand is trading at 17.64 against the US dollar, 22.74 vis-a-vis the British pound, and 19.17 against the euro. The JSE is trading in positive territory. The all-share index has firmed by about 0.6%. The industrial 25 index has gained 1%. Financials are up 0.3%, and the top 10 resources index is up 0.2%. And the precious metals and mining index also added 0.9%. Gold is trading at $2,750 and platinum at $988 per ounce. The price of Brent crude is trading at around $74 a barrel. Well, for more on the markets, I'm joined by Stephen Menkes. He's a consultant at Finova. Stephen, thank you very much for joining us. So the tech darlings have disappointed. What are the issues that market players are concerned about when it comes specifically to tech stocks?
Okay, well, I think the first thing to note is that the three big ones, they were actually in positive territory, but they were slightly below expectations. I think the really worrying concern is Super Microcomputers. Their share price was down 32% because Ernst & Young resigned as auditors. Now, because they disagreed with, they hinted that there was impropriety or how should we say, dishonesty in the numbers. So the share price was down 32%. And it's interesting to note that in 2007, ahead of the crisis then, that quite a number of auditors resigned from listed companies. So that is a bit of a concern. But, while Microsoft and Meta may have disappointed slightly, Amazon was very much, in line, and that was very positive. So we can go into more detail if you like, but I don't think that's a major problem. I think basically there was profit growth. I mean, Microsoft's third quarter revenue was 16% up to $65.6 billion, operating income up 14%, earnings per share was up 10%, 43% of the group revenues from the cloud, and the Azure service was up 22% year on year for the quarter.
Stephen, appreciate that detail. So the first week of each new month is a heavy data period. What do you see driving markets as we head into next week?
Well, I think you've already said it. Of course, we have the election. There are some numbers like, the PMI, and we have a phenomenon whereby the manufacturing PMI is actually below 50. And it's, it was 47.8 in October. But as against that, the S&P Global Flash US Composite was 54.4% in September, as opposed to 54.6 in August. Now, that indicates that business activity in the US is, in the private sector, is holding up nicely. So I think one issue which is going to be affected by the election outcome, of course, is manufacturing, because you know that Trump's talked a lot about, bringing jobs back to the US and improving employment in the manufacturing sector.
Yes. Of course, here at home, there's been quite a lot of information that the market has to take in, the midterm budget, showing that budget deficits are going to be with us at a wider level than had been anticipated. And then there was the producer price inflation that came out yesterday, much better than expected at 1% year on year for the month of September. Trade figures also showing that we have a trade surplus, but of course you can't just look at 1 month in isolation. But given all these data points that came out this week, how are you seeing the rand and how it's performing?
Okay, well, of course, it'll be affected by the dollar after the US election. But in the meantime, on the basis of what you said, the trade figures are encouraging. They will have benefited from the higher precious metals prices, PGMs and gold, and of course the stabilization in coal and iron ore, maybe a little bit more volumes thanks to Transnet improving slightly. So that should continue to be mildly positive. As far as the medium-term budget forecast is concerned, it was very realistic. And I think the point, and one of the many points to note, of course, is that the many policy reforms are not actually baked into the forecasts. I think if you go back a few years, Treasury kind of forecasted a bit on the optimistic side, and it damaged its credibility. But so it's now being very careful to be very realistic, and hopefully, if necessary, on the conservative side.
Yeah. Stephen, thank you so much for your time and your insights there. That was Stephen Menchis. He's a consultant at Finova.